Welcome to another session of Endless Space 2, sort of. So there's a new set of patch notes, and I thought I'd just go through them relatively quickly. And just sort of give my thoughts about, what's going to be impactful, what's not, what's just weird and doesn't make sense for me right now. But this is mostly just first I mean, I have read them through once before, but this is pretty close to first impressions as well. Just because I wanted to quickly say something about this, and maybe what it means I'll be doing my next couple of Endless Space playthroughs. So there's some announcement of new DLC. Like there's Harmonic Memories, which brings back a couple of the key soundtracks from the actually 9 new songs from the Endless Space 1. So not new, I guess. And yeah, you can check it out online for free, which is obviously great. Just listen to the music here, and I recommend doing that because I really like those tracks, and especially I really like, and I sort of miss the Endless Space 1 music. I'll probably get this expansion pack just to listen to different music while playing. But just for a preview of that, or if you like to listen to music directly, just go and pick this up. It's great. Or just not pick this up, but just listen to it online. It's perfectly free, and you can find it on G4F, I think, Records. The other thing is that there's a new expansion, or like a new quest line for the Academy, with 2 new unique planets, extra weapon modules, and empire improvements. So that's definitely intriguing. And I forgot to mention that if you get the Harmonic Memories pack, you get a new hero. So those 2 are pretty neat. I'll probably get them, and we'll see what they're like when they come out. But the more interesting stuff is the Balance Patch here. So what's been added? So there's stuff for the Vidyani, the Lumeris, the Horatio, the Riftborn, the Hisho, and the Unfallen United Empire. So that's almost all factions actually in some way represented. And there's some general tweaks here and bug fixes. I mean, unless the bug fixes have anything important, I don't think these are going to be that interesting. Unless they fix the bullshit. So there's this really weird thing with the Obliterator, where if an opponent fires an Obliterator missile, you have the option to reduce the cost of Obliterator missiles for yourself. And if an opponent fires 3 missiles, you stack that buff 3 times, you basically get 3 Obliterator missiles, meaning you can fire as many missiles as you want, which is kind of silly, and I'd like to see that getting fixed. I don't know if it was the game is sort of intending, it's sort of functioning as intended, but I just feel like that's kind of ridiculous that you can sort of end up in a massive ping pong battle where like you can fire infinite missiles if somebody oversteps that. It's really unintuitive and very, very weird that that's a thing. But anyway, let's go to the factional traits first. So sadly they didn't fix that thing. Again, I don't think it's a bug per se, but it's just a very puzzling and very confusing design choice. So what's been changed about the Lumeris? So there's an improvement to reduce empire inflation by 25%. We have a tier 3 population collection bonus. You get these when you upgrade your you get more of your population. And we bonus 5% of net dust added to influence. We have colonization cost is now less impacted by inflation. And we added 2 traits, which gives minus 5% inflation per trading company and on Empire, and trade gives minus 50% on marketplace tax. So there's a bunch of like small thematic improvements around marketplace mechanics, which is good, I think, because Lumeris are kind of the market faction, so it'd be nice if they were more themed around that. Reducing the inflation of Empire is thematic to the end, they're not especially powerful. 5% of net dust added to influence is quite nice, and I think it will help. So in my latest Lumeris playthrough, I ran into the issue that I didn't actually have that much influence production, and this just generally helps out a lot with that, or it will probably help at least a little bit of that, and that's also very important because when you're playing Lumeris, you're playing a pacifist faction, so influence is absolutely critical. So yeah, this is a good upgrade. Having colonization cost be a bit reduced. I'm not sure how much is going to be reduced. Not much, probably. But that's also nice, though not hugely impactful. And inflation reduction and reduction of marketplace tax. These are nice bonuses, but not huge bonuses. So this extra boost of influence, I think, is reasonably important. But everything else is like, okay, it's slightly better at doing this marketplace trading company thing than you're already doing, which is perfectly fine. It's not a huge power boost to Lumeris, but it's like, it's nice thematic changes. So let's move on to the Vodyani. Now, their Ark ship designs is interesting because that means you can have different kind of. I think it means you're supposed to have different kind of Ark ships, which you can then choose between when you make a new Ark ship. So you can have one design, I guess, for getting somewhere quickly, one design for carrying troops, maybe, and the general design for being an economic Ark ship, which is what most Ark ships are going to be. So that's really good because I guess previously you just had to retrofit the Ark ship and you had to keep track of which Ark ship was doing that, what, or whatever. So it'll make that whole thing a lot less confusing for Vodyani. I haven't actually played Vodyani on my channel yet. But one of the things that you have to tinker with the Ark ship designs to unlock their full potential. Obviously, that gets confusing very quickly if you have exactly one up-to-date design. So this is a nice quality of life change. There's also a population bonus, much like for the Lumeris. And the tier 3 population bonus are going to add movement points on fleets. Very powerful. Movement points on fleets are very important. It's something I jump through. You should jump through some hoops to get. And I think that's pretty good. And a natural conversion of essence into manpower. So 5% of essence is consumed, granting the equivalent of 10% manpower. So other factions have this when naturally food is siphoned off to make manpower. I'm actually not... Look, Vodyani they really starve for manpower, and this is nice for that. But at the same time, you don't always need manpower. Very often you're going to be using like lead ships on your enemies instead of invasions or whatever. And invading doesn't actually do much for you except forcing them to vacate the system so you can plonk your Ark there. So actually you don't benefit that much from manpower anyways. And losing 5% of essence is a little bit of a nerf, though not noticeable, I don't think. So this is overall a positive, but not as big of a positive as it might seem. More quality of life stuff. You can see how much essence is consumed by what. And now this Vodyani food consumption nerf will scale by the proportion of population. Okay, so the way the Vodyani work, they reduce your food production by 50%. So it's almost impossible if you're playing Vodyani to increase your population by food. But also it looks like if you invade a Vodyani system and like 50% Vodyani there, then the benefit is not going to be that big. So this is basically if you invade Vodyani populations and capture them, then you're not going to suffer as much from their faction trait. So the advanced leeching module is more accessible, which is great because that thing is necessary. I often go out of my way to get it, and having it be more accessible is nice. Although they've nerfed the almost provide special modules for the Ark ships a little bit, which is it is a substantial nerf, though it doesn't affect your early game too much, so not the end of the world. And leeching module affects now scale of hull size. That's interesting. Maybe that means you want like a coordinator ship or a carrier ship just to leech, or even an Ark ship to leech actually. And yeah, maybe that means I'll end up experimenting with bigger ships to leech in when I play Vodyani. And leeching module will now grant essence per destroyed CP in battle. That means I guess if you randomly have leeching modules on your warships, then you can gain some extra leech or extra essence by fighting, or if you just carry some leech ships into fights, which is an interesting alternative to leeching them, I guess. If you're just fighting people, either you're leeching them or you're destroying their CPs in battle and getting points. So I guess that means that there's a few more tools for a military Vodyani player, like a little bit of extra manpower, bonus leech for this per CP destroyed. You know, that's fine. Especially this faster advanced leeching module is very important because the advanced leeching module is like noticeably better. Although I wonder if that means that the Ark module for bonus essence is going to be faster because that module is obviously super important. Yeah, so interesting tweaks to Vodyani. I don't think this would change their overall power level very much. The Vodyani have the potential to be very powerful, not the most powerful, but quite powerful. But they're still quite fragile. They're very dependent on picking up a early minor faction to leech, and they're very dependent on having lots of different planets in their system. So again, like with the Numeris, the Vodiani's power level is not heavily impacted by this change. They're like, yeah, they're just some small tweaks. Doesn't really affect how good they are. I think Vodiani is still have the potential to be quite good, but are very inconsistent. The Numeris are a little bit below the power curve, or like one of the a bit weaker factions. Though it's perfectly possible to win with them. Obviously, I have one of them. You should check out my playthrough for that. Now, Horatio also not many big changes, which is kind of a shame because Horatio is currently the meme tier. It's not like I think Horatio is like flavor wise well designed. It's just that Horatio isn't nearly as powerful as other factions. It has a lot harder of a time just generating enough industry early, and also Horatio's population trait where Horatio splices genes from other populations is extremely punishing to use because you're losing a ton of population for a potentially not that great bonus on your main populations. So it's really hard to set up, and then it punishes you a lot. That's one of the reasons I think Horatio struggles in my experience. I feel like Horatio is just kind of one of the weaker factions. I would have liked to see a bit of a buff, but anyway. So added weapon availability on existing slots for flying ships. So it looks like just generally ships are going to be a bit better in terms of weapons. And there's some things changed about custom factions. The ratio traits are now cheaper. No, we don't care. I don't really play with custom factions. If you did, I guess, then you're more interested in picking up some of these ratio things. Doesn't really matter to the average player who doesn't play with custom factions. And I'm sure there are other ways to exploit with custom factions, so not a big deal. The price of perfection trait, that was a pretty huge downside. It meant that your ships costed 25% more industry. Now they only cost 20% more industry. Still a big downside, but they also added 10% damage bonus to ships. So you're getting something for the fact that your ships are so expensive. So that's a nice little buff for Ratio, because like the fact that ships just costed more industry was like, you know, it's a pretty noticeable downside, especially if you're forced to go to war. And at least now your ships are going to be slightly better, and maybe the end game is even an advantage because you end up building up similarly powerful fleets, but now your fleets do a little bit more damage. You can sort of edge them out with extra slots. Although again, the fact that ships cost more industry is like part of the reason why ratio is not so great. And converting a population to a newer ratio with genetic alteration lab will only cost 640. I mean, like this was not a powerful ability anyway, and now it costs a bit less. Like great, but I don't think I'll be using it anyways. So her ratio, like some less meaningful tweaks, I think, and also less flavorful tweaks. I think I don't know. I guess I do like this tweak, but I don't think in general her ratio is much helped, and I don't think. Like, these things kind of are nice quality of life stuff, but I don't know about the ratios. I don't know, maybe I'm just disappointed because I wanted Horatio to be, do better, you know. Anyway, the rift one is the one I'm confused about. So, the fact that we add population slots on sterile planets and lose them on floater planets, that's pretty great. Like, we're gonna pick up sterile planets early anyways, and only pick up fertile planets later. And that means that generally we have more population slots where we can just build up more population early on the game where it really matters. And we lose population slots on these planets. So in a way, it's like population slots have been deferred from the late game planets to the early game planets, is a way to think about it. And that's always going to be beneficial. So we have the same amount of population slots overall, on average, but we have more population slots on planets which we can more easily colonize. So that's a pretty nice buff. And there's apparently a new star system, an empire improvement to add population slots on sterile planets. Probably have to find that somewhere in the tech tree. And this is the one I'm confused. I mean, this is obviously good, right? More population slots. This is a very flavorful upgrade, but it also kind of improves the power level of the faction. Just like a little bit, just like Vodiani and Numeris and Horatio buffs. Although I don't know if Riftborn really needed that. I think they're quite solid. And here, the reduction of Empire... Wait, this is the one I'm weirded out about. Reduced Riftborn Singularity Empire effects from 20% to 10% Empire-wide bonus. What does that mean? Like, so we know that singularities only target systems at a time. I guess there might be singularities that affect an entire empire, which I don't know about, but I don't think there are any of those. So... yeah, I'm just not sure what they mean with this. If they mean that all singularities, the effect is reduced from 25% to 10%, that's a huge nerf. But if they mean that those singularities affect an entire empire, that's a huge buff. Like, if all your planets suddenly get 10% bonus, if all their planets lose 10% bonus efficiency from one spell cost, that's ridiculous. So, I'm not sure what this means. This is not clear to me from the wording. I guess we'll see if we play Riftborn again. Not being able to stack observances hurts the Hisho a little bit. But not too much. Like, you will be stacking observances at the point of the game where you could sacrifice lots of population. And that's certainly good, but it's not the end of the world that you can't do it anymore. Also a bit counterintuitive. It only really was really good for the dust observance. The other ones, like, you gain bonus manpower, okay, who cares, manpower is replaceable. Or manpower, like, if you're ever bottled on manpower, it's not too huge a deal normally. You can always find other ways to deal with that, like sieging more proactively or something. Like, yeah, unless you're a faction which is inherently bottlenecked on manpower, this is not a big worry. So the one that improves dust, you can get that stackingly. I didn't actually know that applied stackingly. That'll be nice, but also the one that gives you K doesn't stack. So it's like a third of the observances are nerfed in the late game now, so it's not that big a deal. Now, the thing that is a big deal is this. Hisho will suffer a malus of 5% FIDs in their home system or best system for each system above overcolonization threshold. So now there's actually a penalty for colonizing more for the Hisho, which is a really big deal. And I think this makes me inclined to just always switch to Federation on Hisho so I can avoid overcolonization. I mean, if you don't do this, this will be, like, pretty huge. You pick up 6 planets through conquest, suddenly your main system is, like, I guess your overcolonization starts with... penalty section starts at, like, 2 or something. Or whatever. I don't know. I think it was 3 originally or something, I don't know. So that basically means that you have a 20% FIDS loss on your main system, which is no joke. Like, think about it this way. There's an upgrade that you can potentially spend a ton of industry and, like, Jadonics, no, not Jadonics, Orichalcix and Quadronix on, and it's like a final tier upgrade, and that improves your homes, improves the system's general FIDs by 10%. Now that's an endgame upgrade, right? And that's not terrible. So basically, every 2 planets you over the colonization threshold adds the opposite of that to one of your systems, which is like that's a noticeable defect. It was really bad for the Hisho, but fortunately for the Hisho, there is a very nice way to circumvent this, and that's just picking up a federation. Federations are nuts. You just have a federation, and then you have a governor for each planet you conquer. And then the fact that you have a hero for each new planet means you will never be under colonization threshold ever. So the fact that federations are a thing stops this from being a massive nerf. It is somewhat of an annoyance, though. And I think this will knock Hisho down from being one of the most powerful factions in the game. When I initially saw it, I was like, it's a massive nerf, and then I thought about federations, and I was like, oh, never mind, federations got this covered, because federations are overpowered. So the Hisho are, in theory, slightly weakened, but I guess in practice you can compensate for this very easily. As long as you know that federations are strong, and that you have bought a lot of heroes in the marketplace. And the AI now has a base K income, which sucks, because I was very happy with, like, chowing the Hisho AI. And now it might actually be a real threat on endless difficulty. Which is, like, at least slightly annoying, but okay. I hope they just don't become randomly the new Cravers, where the Cravers just are so economically advantaged on endless difficulty that if you get bad spawns and aren't careful, they just crush you. But anyway. So a noticeable change for Hisho, which will slightly change the way you have to play. I think you now have to go for Federation and get a lot of governors. but it should be something that it is bad for them, right? But it should be something that the Hisho can overcome. I wonder if this is a design decision based on the fact that they felt like the Hisho were just getting away with colonization too much via military, or is it like a balance decision because they felt the Hisho were too strong? Because if it's a balance decision, like why is the ratio not getting a huge buff? The ratio deserves better. I guess it makes more sense. So. Now the Unfallen. Unfallen vines will not take time to receive, even when incomplete. Okay, so if somebody snipes your vine ships, that doesn't mean you lose all your progress. That's okay. And vining modules are now 20% faster. Now that is a pretty huge buff. I don't know if that means that you can vine a system with 5 ships in 4 turns, or if that just means that you only need 4 ships to do it in 5 turns. But either way, that's a pretty substantial buff. It helps the Unfallen early game out a lot, and that's big enough that I think it starts edging them towards the top spot. Like, Unfallen and Hisho, both factions I think are very powerful and very consistent. And I guess the Hisho, you sometimes can't invade people, but you know, they're strong factions, and Unfallen especially. Like, you check out my playthrough, and then I managed to win like 118 turns, or 108 turns, I think. So I personally find the Unfallen like very pleasant to play, and I think you can just win quite quickly with just expanding and vining and stuff. And the fact that vining is now faster means that you can colonize way faster, put influence pressure on people way faster. It makes the thing that was really powerful by the Unfallen even more powerful. So this is a pretty substantial buff to the Unfallen, which is, I still think, a little bit weird because I thought the Unfallen were pretty strong anyways. Generally, the game has decent balancing, but like some of the factions just noticeably worse. Like, I personally think Sophons and Horatio especially are like below par quite noticeably, and then other factions could just win or like noticeably above par. I think like Unfallen, Hisho, Fudiani with a good start, but the Fudiani are very inconsistent. But yeah, so to making one of the stronger factions even stronger is a little bit puzzling to me. I feel like they should have maybe gotten an accompanying nerf to make their endgame less powerful. Because the thing is with the Unfallen, their only real weakness was like a slow-ish early game. And now this has been like, that weakness has been reduced pretty noticeably. So, yeah, Unfallen looking very powerful, even more powerful than they already were. So, bit of a puzzling change, I think. I think, like, balance-wise is not great, but obviously I like playing the Unfallen, and now they're even better. So, good. And the United Empire get a very interesting tweak. So, the way United Empire works is that United Empire has a bunch of different ways you can change your population as your quest progresses. You can become Mazari, like your ancestors. You can become Sheridan, who are militarists, or like modeled on the United Empire Royal Guard, or you can stay as the United Empire. So basically they've rebalanced these populations to make them seem more fitting with the United Empire theme, but also a bit more unique. So initially Mazari populations basically turned into Sophons, and they gave you bonus science per population, but also 3 bonus science on cold. They've changed it to bonus 0.5 influence per population and 1 science per population. That's a good change, I think. It makes them feel more unique and more like the United Empire. Although they're obviously a variation of that. And they've also changed their collection bonus. They've nerfed their percentage bonus to science to make it 10% science from the military science, which is a thing you get from the quest, and 10% science from the Mazari population bonus instead of the 10. So you used to get 30% from those combined, now you get 20% from those combined. So that's a noticeable nerf to the Mazari, despite this, I think, overall buff, meaning that they probably still won't be the correct choice more often than not. And minus 10 technology cost instead of minus 20. Again, Mazari seem to have been nerfed. I'm not sure why. They didn't seem like the optimal choice for me to begin with. Yeah, so I'm not sure why they got that. Maybe I was just underrating Mazari and other people be using them to great effect. Or maybe the designers just felt like these bonuses were a bit much. I don't know. I would like to see the rationale of these uploads in the future. Like, often other companies like Blizzard will say, oh, we did this because of this, when they, for instance, balance Hearthstone. Not that I really play Hearthstone anymore, but like, it's just something I was thinking of. So it would have been nice to see why they felt this was necessary. Also, why the hell was this, like, Unfallen was so strong. What else? So Sheridan now similarly gain 20 manpower capacity, but they also give a little bit of influence. So their manpower, is the science here, is a little bit reduced, but it also gives you more influence. So it's just keeping the Empire theme of generating influence, which I approve of. Like, it's nice that the population feel more like a variation of what you were doing before, with new effects rather than something completely different, you know? And increases science gains from a science agreement, I guess on the United Empire in particular as a perk or something. Or if this is in general, it should be down here. So increased science gains from a science agreement is, I guess, nice for United Empire if they rely on treaties and they're not independently that strong on science. Mount Zelivus, the special building you can get for the United Empire tree, now increases 20% industry on system per population type in Empire, in addition to its other bonuses. So that's a nice boost to Mount Zelivus, and a nice boost to picking United Empire as your population type. Again, you have the choice between Mazari, Sheridan, United Empire at some point in the quest. And now United Empire population collection bonus gives you another stack of empires as well, basically, which gives 0.5 influence per industry spent, which means you will have even more influence to play with as the United Empire. Though now it's becoming a little bit less appealing because the other factions also gain a decent chunk of influence per population type. So that'll be interesting to see. Now, there's some nice buffs to the United Empire, although the comparative nerf of having Sheridan and Mazari sort of doing, I mean, at least, even though it's a bit weaker, just giving the extra influence, which the United Empire population type was previously the king of. And Silken Diplomacy has been replaced by Iron Will, which grants 10% more industry to all systems when staying United Empire, which is a lot better than whatever the hell Silken Diplomacy did. I can't remember. I think it was something like reduced treaty cost, which is garbage, right? And then instead granting 10% industry to all systems is a huge buff. That kind of makes the United Empire the most appealing now, I think. Previously, I liked Sheridan more, because I just like rushing face and claiming lots of systems. But it's possible United Empire is now just the strongest choice due to this. And now the initial quest, the reaching manpower, that's now been reduced to make that choice a lot more viable in the part of the quest. Interesting that they're only rebalancing the quest here. I feel like there's a lot of different quest steps where like one is just obviously harder than the other. But anyway, nice change. And for some reason this is over here, not here. Like the listing is a bit weird. Sheridan 50 population collecting bonus now adds +5 influence per 10 manpower, 100 manpower in the system. That's pretty nice. So basically, you gain more manpower, which gives you more influence. Or you just gain directly more influence. So Sheridan have... Yeah, again, this just modifies Mazari and Sheridan to be a bit more influence-centric. And just really solidifies United Empire as a good influence faction no matter which way you go. So, in general, I like those changes. I don't know if Mazari needed the nerfs as much. I don't know. It didn't feel to me like Mazari was like obviously the correct correct choice to make. Maybe I'm wrong, but yeah, I don't know if they needed these negatives here. I guess maybe the developers feel like Mazari were quite strong, and I might be wrong about that, but it didn't feel to me like they needed to be nerfed a little bit. Anyway, there's some small tweaks here, like military super law doesn't grant an approval bonus for War of Mine Empires. That seems fine. Infiltration formula is tweaked. I don't care. Trading companies. Wait. Cost of dust luxury improvements are now tightly linked to their types. There's still base increase for each brought up. I'm not sure what that means. Whatever. So the cost of dust and luxury improvements has been lowered. So that's nice. Basically means it'll be easier to pick those up. They were not that efficient anyways, so that's good. I'm not sure what this means. Again, there are some things that are just poorly wood here, like the Riftborn. I have no idea what they mean with this, and I played a bit with the Riftborn, and like I read the things again, and I still don't know what it means. So if you could enlighten me in the comments, that'd be great. So they mixed up the starting battle tactics, which is interesting because I think, I think the starting battle tactics were good enough that you could just use them all the time. And you don't really feel incentivized to like invest into other stuff. Although it makes it a little bit worrying that the battle tactics can be garbage, and then you're going to be forced to get some battle tactics somewhere, some annoying technology or something. Um, yeah, I don't know. Just hopefully this change of battle tactics will be a net positive to the game. Um, Again, I still think there should have been a cooler battle system. Like, if you just made the battle system about positioning, I think it would be way more interesting. Like, maybe you choose a different way to try and flank the enemy, or like you rush them directly, and just the positioning effects would have been interesting instead of like just picking cards to counter other cards. It's not very engaging. I understand that battles are not supposed to take up much of your time, and I think that's good about the game. But I also would like a more interesting tactical dynamic to it than glorified rock paper scissors. Not like rock paper scissors can't be good, but like it's just one layer of it. You know, like other games, maybe like I don't know, Homeworld. You like fighters counter bombers, but then corvettes counter fighters, and then when you position your corvettes to attack them, etc. But there's no such complexity about battles in Endless Legend Space 2. Well, Endless Legend is a bit more complex, but also has its issues. So that's I still think a little bit sad that the system is still in place. I wish they would have come up with something better for this game. But it's really a small complaint I have about a game I otherwise really love. So yeah, whatever. Now the most significant change actually is this Dirty Hands Act is now 50% weaker, which is huge because Dirty Hands Act was the shit. Like, you could basically reduce improvement costs by 20%, which was huge for like, it was one of the things that kept science starting factions afloat, with the science laws, I mean. Like, it's a huge bonus to factions, which I think are a little bit on the weak side anyways, like Voltas and Sophons, where you can activate Dirty Hands Act and just boost your industrial output or boost your improvement production by a substantial amount. And now that I mean, the law was independently very powerful, but I don't think the incentives for going into science were that great anyway. I mean, apart from that law, there's some good laws in science, but they lack a lot of focus, right? So the big incentive for going for science has now been significantly weakened, and I don't know. I feel like that's a noticeable hit to scientists starting factions, like Voltas and Sophons. And I feel like that was maybe unnecessary because even though Dirty Hands Act is Dirty Hand Act, never mind. Dirty Hand Acts, or whatever. Dirty Hand Act somehow, some combination. Anyway, so the thing about Dirty Hand is like, it was obviously powerful, but it was the factions that started with scientists. Now I know you can switch, right? But switching is impractical and difficult to achieve, and like, also if you switch to science, then you're a bit behind on it. And I don't know. I feel like the factions that started with science got a nice bonus out of that, and now they don't have it. So I think that's an indirect nerf to them. So, given that I don't think Voltas and Sophons were that good in the first place, I think Dirty Hands Act. I'm just a little bit disappointed about this change from a band's perspective. I mean, I think in a vacuum, the perk is really good, and maybe the nerf is justifiable, but I think given the context of the factions that got nerfed by this, I'm not a huge fan of this change. It would have been nice to see some balanced upgrades to Voltas and Sophons to counteract that. Especially Sophons. I think Sophons are quite weak. And it would have been nice if the Sophons got an upgrade, I think. They struggle a lot with early game industry, which is a common trait about... This is a common theme with lots of the weak factions, I think, is that they struggle with setting up their industry, and then it's really nice to pick up all these extra sciences early and stuff, but it doesn't actually matter too much if your industry base isn't powerful enough to support the extra sciences. So yeah, Dirty Hands Act makes the thing that was really holding a lot of these weaker factions, or specifically the Sophons, back. Makes it even more of a problem. So Voltas, Sophons, they weren't great with industry anyways, and now they're even worse at industry. Like, I haven't played the Voltas too much. I think they're still fine, but I think it's a noticeable hit to the Sophons and an indirect nerf to them. And again, like with the Horatio, I feel like the Sophons are a cool faction, which deserves a little bit of a balance buff, to be honest. Yeah, I feel like I think Horatio and Sophons are just quite weak. I haven't actually played them, so like, let me reserve my judgment. Like, I had a series where I played the cultist, and I was convinced at the start I was going to lose, and then I won. And it turns out the cultists are not as bad as I thought. So let me reserve judgment completely before I play the Sophons, before I play the Horatio, and try and make them work. But until then, I think this Dirty Hands Act is not a great change balance-wise because of which factions it hits the most, being factions which aren't even that strong in the first place. So admittedly, Dirty Hands Act is a fantastic law, but it's a fantastic law helping the factions that were not so good do the things that they were not so good at, like industry. So that's basically it here. So overall, some nice flavorful upgrades and changes. Some puzzling design decisions, I think, like I'm improving the Unfallen, which I already thought was one of the strongest factions, if not least. I almost feel like Unfallen have the potential to be the strongest faction, as long as you can consistently force a pacifist playstyle. Like sometimes you just play against Cravers, then you have to adapt. But Unfallen are, I just think, very powerful, and then their main weakness has just been reduced a bit. And then also some a noticeable weakness to science-based factions, which are anyways, or science law factions, which were anyways not that powerful in the first place. Nerfing in Dirty Hands Act by 50% is, I think, a big blow to factions, especially the Sophons, because I think the Sophons were struggling a bit. Otherwise, not that much matters here too much. There's some nice changes. I have no idea what this Riftborn Singularity thing is about. It could make the Riftborn a lot better or a lot worse, but I just don't know what this means. Reduced Riftborn Singularity's Empire effects on 10% Empire-wide bonus. Like, does this mean this 10% is an Empire-wide bonus? Or does this mean that this 25% becomes 10% for one planet? Like, I have no idea. That's either really good or really bad. And I guess we'll find out when I play or when this... I think it's already hit. Like, maybe I should just play the Riftborn again just to see, but also, why should I play a lot to try and test this if they just could write it in an understandable format? Anyway, and the Hisho got a noticeable nerf, but this nerf is counteracted by the fact that Federation is overpowered. So, all in all, a lot of nice flavor changes, especially with the United Empire, Lumeris, but also some balance changes which I'm not necessarily a fan of, and some new DLC which might be pretty cool, especially the songs. The fact that the songs are available for free is great. You should definitely check out those songs. That's really awesome, especially if you've played Ender Space 1 and you can appreciate that soundtrack. Or if you haven't, just listen to the soundtrack, it's great. And you can, again, access it without paying. You can pay if you wanted to listen to it in the game and get this new harmonic or harmonized hero, and I think I will. And I think I will give this new questline a try. And also, a little bit of new content is neat, although... yeah, I guess having a questline of 14 chapters warrants a pay tag, but okay. So, yeah, let me know what you think about the balance change. And I'll see you soon. I'll probably do an Endless Space 2 playthrough maybe within a week, 2 weeks, I don't know. I'll see how it goes. I'm not sure if I have that much time, but I'll definitely do Endless Legend first, then go back to Endless Space 2, and then maybe play some other games again. Especially like Invisible Ink, I should probably start a second playthrough, at least experiment with those new agents. Those are cool. So thanks again for joining me here. I hope you got something out of my thoughts about the balance patches. Please let me know in the comments what you think. Like, are you as surprised as I am about the Unfallen buff? And the nerf to the wonderful Dirty Hands Act. But anyway, see you soon, and I hope you enjoyed or learned something from this video. And if you did, consider subscribing and liking.